Chicago. A Saturday afternoon in November. Rain pouring like a flood. Wind whipped water across the glass of Haley's Sweet Haven in long white streaks. Inside, the warm golden lights were about to go out, the scent of butter and vanilla still lingering, clinging desperately to the last bit of warmth in the dying day. The door burst open, the wind chime clanging in panic. A little girl slipped through the gap, soaked to the bone, tiny inside a torn raincoat, an old backpack hanging lopsided off one shoulder. Rainwater streamed from her hair down her neck, but her arms were wrapped tightly around a large ivory-white cake box, its big pink ribbons sodden and stuck to her trembling fingers. Emily Stone, 9 years old, big round eyes red from crying, tears falling silently. Haley James was wiping the counter. Her hand froze mid-air. She recognized that box instantly, the 3-tier strawberry berry and lemon curd cake she'd stayed up all night to make. The most expensive cake that had ever left her oven. The cake that had vanished without explanation that morning. Emily Haley gasped, her voice breaking. "What are you doing with that box?" The little girl pressed her lips together, tears rolling down and mingling with the rain. I didn't steal it, miss." Her voice shook like it might shatter. "Someone told me to take it. Told me to bring it back to the home. But I was scared. Scared they'd say I was lying." Haley hurried around the counter and knelt to the child's eye level. "Who told you to take it? Who?" Emily looked up, then pointed a trembling finger toward the fogged glass door. Outside, there was only rain and darkness. A dry, rasping cough came from the most familiar shadowed corner of the shop, the corner no one had dared sit in for 5 years except him. James Harris stood up. Gray wool coat, silver hair falling across his forehead, hands clenched until the knuckles were white. For the first time in 500 consecutive Saturdays, he spoke to someone other than the words, "Black coffee, thank you." It was me. His voice was raw, like he'd swallowed broken glass. "I paid for it. I told the girl to take it." Haley spun around, eyes wide. Mr. Harris James took one step forward. The golden light fell across his face, gaunt, weary, and fighting to hold something inside his chest that was about to break open. "I didn't expect she'd take it back to the home today." He looked at Emily, then at the drenched box in her arms. "I just wanted her to have a real birthday cake, just once." Emily looked up at him, eyes huge. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "But I was so scared. Scared no one would believe me." James lowered himself slowly to his knees, as though he'd forgotten how people did that long ago. He reached out, not quite daring to touch her, just holding out a trembling hand. "I believe you," he said, his voice cracking into pieces. "I believe you." The rain kept falling. Inside the little bakery, 3 people stood there among the smell of sugar and tears and a cake that had never expired. 24 hours earlier, another Saturday afternoon in the rain, but lighter this time, the kind of teasing Chicago drizzle that soaks you before you even notice. Emily Stone had been standing on the sidewalk across from the bakery for a very long time. Her torn sneakers were waterlogged socks glued cold to her skin, but she didn't move. Through the fogged glass, she stared at the cakes lined up in the glowing display case, deep red velvet rows of colorful macarons, and especially the 3-tier sample cake in the corner, covered in smooth white frosting, dotted with fresh strawberries and tiny sugar flowers. It looked exactly like the cakes in the picture books she used to dream of touching just once. She clutched 73 cents in the pocket of her raincoat, coins she'd collected over 2 weeks sweeping the orphanage yard. 73 cents wouldn't buy even the smallest cupcake, but Emily crossed the street anyway. She had promised herself today she would ask just once. The bell jingled. Haley James was cleaning up after the afternoon rush, sweat beading on her forehead, despite the cold outside. The shop had been in the red for 3 straight months. Bills were piling up and the bank had sent its second warning letter. Haley was so tired she just wanted to lock up early. She didn't hear the tiny footsteps at first, until a small voice rose from below the counter. "Miss..." Haley looked down. A skinny little girl with rain-flattened hair and eyes that took up half her face was staring up at her. Emily had to stand on tiptoe just to see over the glass counter. I just want to ask something." The girl swallowed hard. "Do you have any expired cakes?" "Yesterday's or the day before's is fine. I only have 73 cents. Haley froze. There was still one customer in the shop, the silver-haired old man in his usual corner, same as every Saturday for the past 5 years, ordering black coffee, no sugar, and staring silently out the window. Mr. Harris. He had never spoken more than 10 words to her in all that time. Haley opened her mouth to give the usual answer. "Sorry, sweetie, we don't sell day-old cakes." But the words died in her throat when she saw Emily's trembling hand open 3 quarters, 2 dimes, 13 pennies, all wet and ice-cold. There wasn't a trace of begging in the girl's eyes, only pure, fragile hope, thin as spider silk. Haley let out a cloudy breath. She had meant to gently send her away, really, but something about Emily stabbed her right in the chest, the same ache she used to feel when she was little and her own mother stood outside bakeries unable to afford even a loaf of bread. "What's your name?" Haley asked, softer than she intended. "Emily Stone." "I'm 9. "Emily," Haley repeated, tasting the name. "We really don't have any expired cakes today. But..." She glanced at the clock, 5:42 p.m., 18 minutes until closing. "Can you come back tomorrow, Sunday? I'll open a little late. I'll save something for you." Emily blinked, not believing her ears. She pressed her lips together hard so she wouldn't cry, and nodded furiously. "I'll come back, I promised. Thank you. Thank you so much." She spun around and bolted out the door, the bell jingling wildly again as the small figure disappeared into the thickening rain. Haley stood there for a long time, still gripping the cleaning rag, not understanding why she had just said that. In the corner, James Harris slowly set down his coffee cup. He had seen everything, heard every word. He watched the tiny shape vanish into the rain, then looked at the 3-tier sample cake in the display, the one Haley had finished that morning, meant to be the holiday advertising centerpiece. James's hand tightened around the cold cup. Another face appeared in his mind. Also 9 years old, also. Huge round eyes, also once standing outside a bakery window a very long time ago. Lily. He closed his eyes. His breath caught in his chest. For the first time in 5 years, he stood up before the shop closed. He left the money for his coffee on the table as always, but this time he also left a small, folded note tucked beneath the saucer. Haley only found it when she wiped the table at the end of the night. On the paper was a single, shaky, handwritten line. "Tomorrow, please save the big cake for the little girl. I will pay. Don't say it was me. No signature." That was all. Haley stared at the note, then out at the pitch-black window, where the rain still fell without pause. She had no idea that tonight would be the longest night of her life and the beginning of a family no one ever thought would exist. That night, Chicago was cold enough to cut skin. Wind howled through the cracks of the old penthouse on Lakeshore Drive, but James Harris felt none of it. He sat motionless in the pitch-dark living room, the only light coming from the street lamps bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting pale stripes across his face. On the coffee table in front of him lay a worn brown leather photo album he hadn't opened in 3 years. Tonight, his trembling fingers turned the pages as though the paper might crumble at his touch. Page 17, Lily. 9 years old in a yellow duck raincoat, nose pressed against the glass at Donut Vault that year. Huge round eyes, crooked ponytail mouth wide open in a perfect O at a 3-tier strawberry cake. I want this one for my 10th birthday. Promise me. Daddy. James stopped breathing. The image of Emily this afternoon overlapped Lily's so perfectly that he felt someone reach inside his chest and squeeze. Same age, same eyes, same way of pressing her lips together to keep from crying. He stood up abruptly. The album fell to the carpet without a sound. The phone in his hand burned. 1:14 a.m. Haley James was shutting off the last oven when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, but something made her answer, hello. The voice on the other end was so hoarse it barely sounded like Mr. Harris, the man who for 5 years had spoken exactly 4 words per week: black coffee, thank you. Make the biggest cake you've ever made. No greeting, no hesitation. 3 tiers, strawberry and lemon curd, white sugar flowers. Write Emily Stone on it. Don't put my name. Haley froze, hands still dusted with flour. Mr. Harris, it's after 1 in the morning. I know. His voice sounded crushed beneath a boulder. I'll transfer the money now. Whatever you want. Mr. Harris, that sample cake took all day. Imported ingredients fondant has to be pre-ordered. I'll send $2,000. Keep the rest for charity if you like. Just have it ready before the girl comes tomorrow around 3. Haley stared out the shop window at the curtain of rain. She could hear him breathing hard on the other end. Mr. Harris, why are you doing this? You've never even spoken to Emily. Silence stretched so long she thought the call had dropped. Then his voice came barely a whisper. Because I still owe a 9-year-old girl a birthday cake, and I'm already 6 years late. The line went dead. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed. $2,000 transferred. Note for Emily Stone's cake. The rest is yours. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Haley stood motionless in the empty kitchen. She looked at the 3-tier sample still in the display case, the one meant to stay there until Christmas. Then she looked at her flour and butter hands. She turned on every light in the kitchen. She put on music, her mother's late-night baking song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She pulled out 15 eggs, French butter, Madagascar vanilla, and the last perfect late-season strawberries, kept in perfect cold. She started over from scratch, not for the money, but because for the first time in her life she felt she was making a cake for someone who truly needed it. 4:00 a.m. First tier done, lemon curd smooth as silk. 5:30 a.m. Second tier covered in white ganache. 7:00 a.m. Third tier finished light as a cloud. From 800 to 1100, Haley sat piping sugar flowers, tiny roses, delicate leaves, exactly like the ones in the Polaroid. James Harris had silently left on the counter at 6:00 a.m. He had slipped in, placed the photo, and left without a word. In the picture, Lily Harris, 9 years old, grinning ear to ear beside a birthday cake that never got cut, her last birthday, before the car accident on another rainy Saturday 6 years ago took both her and her mother from him. Haley looked at the photo, then at the cake taking shape in front of her. She understood everything. At noon, she wrote Emily Stone in strawberry pink cursive on a white chocolate plaque. She did not write happy birthday, because she knew that for Emily, just seeing her own name on a cake would already be the whole world. The cake went into the tallest, most beautiful box the shop had ever owned. Haley stepped back, hands shaking, eyes stinging from exhaustion and from something warmer than a 400-degree oven. At 5:00 p.m., she sent one single message to the unknown number from the night before. The cake is ready. Thank you for letting me make it. I won't tell her you paid, but I think one day you should tell her yourself. No reply came, only a single blue check mark. Outside, the rain had stopped. A weak November sun broke through, throwing a long streak of light across the shop window, as if the whole city were waiting for the 9-year-old girl to come back. Sunday, 3 p.m. The bakery door opened for the second time that day, the bell jingling as always, but this time accompanied by the sound of breathless panting. Emily Stone burst in like a small gust of wind, yesterday's raincoat now dry but still patched and threadbare. Her eyes blazed, both hands gripping the straps of her old backpack so tightly her knuckles went white. "Miss Haley, I'm here." Haley stood behind the counter, fingers clamped to the edge so she wouldn't shake. On the counter sat the tall, ivory-white box, almost as high as Emily's chest, tied with an enormous pink ribbon shaped like a giant flower. Emily froze. Her wet shoes left 2 streaks on the wooden floor. Her mouth fell open. For several seconds, she made no sound at all. That's really for me," Haley smiled, but the corners of her eyes were wet. "Open it, Emily." The little girl took tiny steps forward, as if the floor might crack. Her trembling hands lifted the lid. The cake appeared beneath the warm golden lights, 3 flawless white tiers edged with bright red fresh strawberries, sugar flowers so delicate they were almost transparent, and on the very top, in soft pink chocolate, cursive, "For Emily Stone with love." Emily's head snapped up. Tears were already rolling down her cheeks without her noticing. I have my name on a cake." Her voice broke into sobs. "The first time ever in my life." Haley stepped out from behind the counter and knelt, pulling the child into her arms. Emily burst into tears against her, crying so hard her whole body shook, raw, choking sobs that poured out 9 years of loneliness. Haley stroked her hair and whispered, "You deserve it, Emily, more than anyone." The corner door creaked softly. James Harris had been standing there for who knows how long, silent hands in the pockets of his coat, eyes red. He didn't step fully inside, just lingered on the threshold, as though he had no right to cross it. Emily lifted her head from Haley's arms and saw him. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve, suddenly shy. "You're the man from yesterday, right? The one who sits in that corner." James nodded, unable to speak. Emily let go of Haley and walked toward him in small steps. She came up to his chest. One step away, she looked up, eyes still glistening. "I want to share the cake with the kids at the home," she said, voice firm despite the tremor. "None of them have ever had real cake with frosting. They'll be so happy." Can I take it back with me?" James knelt down slowly. His knees cracked like dry wood. He looked straight into Emily's eyes, the eyes he had seen in his dreams for 6 years. "Take it," he said, voice rough as gravel. "Take all of it. I'll order more." Emily smiled, the first smile James had ever seen on her face. Bright, fearless. "Thank you so much, sir." She hesitated, then suddenly stepped forward and threw her small arms around his neck. "You're really kind." James went rigid. Then his trembling arms closed around her light, as though she might vanish. He shut his eyes. Silent tears fell into her hair. Haley stood watching, hand over her mouth to hold back the sobs. Emily let go, turned back to the cake, then to the two adults. Can I ask something? Anything, sweetheart. Haley answered. Emily bit her lip, twisting her fingers together. Who ordered the cake for me? I want to thank them. James and Haley looked at each other. No one spoke for several seconds. Then James took a deep, shaky breath and pulled an old, frayed-edged Polaroid from his inner coat pocket. He handed it to Emily. In the photo was a 9-year-old girl with a crooked ponytail, grinning huge, beside a 3-tier birthday cake, almost identical to the one in front of them. The girl in the picture wore a yellow duck raincoat and was flashing a V sign. Emily stared at the photo, then at James, then back at the photo. Her mouth fell open. She looks just like me. James nodded, voice shaking. Her name was Lily. Lily Harris. My daughter. You could be her twin. Emily looked at him, eyes wide. She wasn't afraid. She didn't step back. Instead, she moved closer and placed her small, cold hand on his cheek, warm in a way that defied temperature. You miss Lily, don't you? James couldn't answer. He only nodded. Emily pressed her lips together, then said with the certainty of a grown-up, I don't have a mom or dad. If you want, you can be my dad. The words landed in the little bakery like a quiet bomb. James Harris, the man who hadn't cried in front of another soul for 6 years, broke down right there, sobbing like a child holding Emily tight. Haley stood behind the counter, tears streaming, but her mouth curved into a smile. Outside the window, the frail November Chicago sun sent one long beam of light across the floor, just enough to touch the 3 people holding one another among the scent of sugar and the very first tears of happiness.